Well, good day everyone. We are the group 2 and today we will be presenting on the two important topics, which is the neurodevelopmental disorders and the neurocognitive disorders. So our report will start with neurodevelopmental disorders. So my name is Lani Andit and I am joined by my group members Sala Mama, Aminuddin Najepa, and Abdullah Saima. So in this presentation, we will first explore the nature of neurodevelopmental disorders, focusing on their symptoms, causes, and how they affect individuals' life. So let's begin with an overview of what these disorders are and why they are so significant in childhood development.
Okay, so first, neurodevelopmental disorder affect how the brain develop and function. So parang yung brain natin, hindi siya nag-develop in a usual way, kaya may mga delay sa skills like pagsasalita or pag-learn ng mga bagay-bagay. So this disorder usually starts during childhood, pero hindi ibig sabihin nun na habang tumatanda yung isang tao is mawawala siya. It can still affect their life habang tumatanda sila. Hindi lang siya childhood problem. It is something na pwedeng mag-last for a long time. So this disorder can impact different areas of life. For example, someone might have a hard time learning how to speak, or baka struggle sila sa pagbabasa, pagsulat, or pag-control ng mga emotions nila and actions. Tapos baka yung iba hirap din sila na makipag-socialize or makipag-friends. So since these challenges can last for life, they need ongoing support. Pwedeng kailangan nila ng special education, therapy, or sometimes medication para matulungan sila na i-manage yung symptoms and makapamuhay sila ng mas okay and mas normal. So to understand the neurodevelopmental disorders, kailangan muna natin mag-gets kung ano ba yung difference ng normal and abnormal development in children. So let's start with what we call normal development. So normal development follows a sequential pattern where yung skills nagiging foundation siya, yung early skills naging foundation siya for later abilities. Like, di ba, yung mga toddlers, mauna muna sila mag-walk bago sila mag-run or mag-jump. So as times go by, magiging gradual yung progression ng skills nila. Social, cognitive, and communication skills develop naturally. Like first babies will recognize faces. Tapos as they grow, they will start to interact with others, and eventually they learn how to express their emotions and form sentences. So sometimes meron talagang delays in development, which is normal naman. Like yung child might be late in walking or talking, pero with the right support and environment, they usually catch up with other kids. So for example, a child might start talking later than expected, pero by the age of 3 or 4, kaya naman nilang maghabol yung same communication level as other kids. And then now with the abnormal development, yung mga delays are more noticeable. Like mapansin talaga sa mga galaw nila, and they persist beyond the expected age. Yung skills either hindi na-develop in the typical sequence, or minsan hindi talaga lumalabas yung mga certain abilities. Like for example, a child with abnormal development might show signs like lack of social engagement, meaning hindi sila masyadong interact with others. So or they don't respond to social cues the usual way. They might also have communication issues like struggling to form words or understand language. So ang other signs naman ng abnormal development include difficulty learning, like nahirapan sila to understand new concepts, and may behavioral issues din, like they can control their impulses or emotions in a way that's typical for their age. So kaya super important talaga to identify these signs early, kasi early intervention can make a huge difference to development ng isang bata. So some kids might catch up with the right help, but others might need a long-term support. So Here are the most common example of abnormal disorder. First is autism spectrum disorder or ASD. So with ASD, parang may struggle talaga sila when it comes to social interaction and communications. Like minsan they don't really know how to read cues, so read social cues. Like kaya parang off yung vibe nila sa group settings. Like for example, they might not understand jokes, or they prefer to be alone, and hirap din sila mag-express ng feelings nila, or minsan they repeat words or actions kasi yun yung comfort zone nila. And plus, super attached sila sa routines nila. Like if something changes, sobrang stress na nila agad. They experience the world differently from most people, I mean. And then sa attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD, ito yung pinaka-common, especially sa mga kids. Yung mga may ADHD, they are super active and hirap silang mag-focus. Like kunwari nasa class sila, they get distracted easily, or parang hindi nila matapos yung isang task kasi madali nga sila ma-distract. Then they are always on the go, parang hindi sila mapakali, kaya makita mo na lagi silang gumagalaw or may ginagawa sila kahit hindi naman kailangan. And also, very impulsive sila, meaning they do things agad-agad without thinking. Parang nag-a-act sila based on what they feel at the moment, kaya minsan napapagalitan sila or na-misunderstand. So in naman sa specific learning disabilities like dyslexia, this means na may challenges sila like in certain areas of learning, usually reading, writing, or doing math. Sa dyslexia daw, pag may dyslexia ka, yung mga letters daw or words nagiging jumbled, kaya sobrang hirap nila magbasa kahit they try their best. So it's not because hindi sila matalino, but because their brain process things differently. So kahit matalino sila in the other areas, pagdating sa reading, writing, or doing math, sobrang struggle sila. But with the right support talaga, like special classes or tutor, they can still succeed. So overall, the neurodevelopmental disorder affect different areas of development, like how people think, communicate, and interact with others. Yung mga taong may ganitong disorder, hindi naman ibig sabihin na hindi sila capable, pero they just need a bit more support and understanding kasi they process things differently, whether it is ASD, ADHD, learning disabilities. But with the right help, they can live a fulfilling lives and achieve their goals. So, yan yung tatlong common neurodevelopmental disorders, and marami pang iba. So, to dive deeper onto those, I'll now pass it on the next reporter, Miss Sala Mama, who will explain them further.
Good day everyone, I am Sahla K. Mama, and now I am going to discuss about neurodevelopmental disorder and neurocognitive disorder. In neurodevelopmental disorder, it involves specific learning disorder, autism spectrum disorder, and treatment of autism spectrum disorder. While in neurocognitive disorder, it involves causes of neurocognitive disorder, treatment, and prevention. So, itong specific learning disorder ay hindi siya problema sa intelligence, but rather a difference in how the brain process information. Ito rin yung pagkakaroon ng hard time sa pag-iintindi ng mga certain language kahit pa you're perfectly capable of learning other things. So we have some types of specific learning disorders such as read impairment in reading or what we call dyslexia. Ang dyslexia, ito yung mga taong may reading disorders o nahihirap ang magbasa dahil meron silang difficulty sa pag-connect ng letters with sounds, making reading slow and effortful. The next type of specific learning disorder is with impairment in writing expression, or what we call dysgraphia. Dysgraphia, ito yung mga taong may impaired or kapansanan sa spelling at lalo na sa writing. Kaya naman nahihirapan silang i-perfect ang isang grammar, punctuation, and clarity or organization of written expression. The last type of specific learning disorder is with impairment in mathematics, or what we call dyscalculia. Dyscalculia, ito yung mga taong nakikitaan ng below average skills in number sense, memorization of arithmetic facts, fluent calculation, and accurate math reasoning. Ang dyscalculia na tinatawag ding math disorder ay nagpapakita ng difficulties sa pagkakatuto sa learning number-related concepts, processing numerical information, at sa pag-calculate ng mathematics. So, ang iilang symptoms ng specific learning disorders ay dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. Sa dyslexia, makikitaan natin siya ng struggling to rhyme words, difficulty matching sounds with letters, gaya nung sinabi ko kanina, trouble putting sounds in the right order, leaving out or reading words twice, and difficulty sounding out words. Sa dysgraphia naman, makikitaan natin siya ng illegible handwriting, frequent spelling errors, difficulty with grammar and punctuations, gaya nung sinabi ko rin kanina, and difficulty organizing thoughts on paper. While sa dyscalculia naman, makikitaan natin siya ng difficulty understanding math concepts, trouble with number sense and number facts, struggling with basic math operations, and making numerous small mistakes in math problems. So what is the treatment for specific learning disorder? We are all know na there is no cure for this specific learning disorder. But with appropriate interventions, treatment often involves a combination of specialized instruction, cognitive behavioral therapy, accommodations, and medication. Sa specialized instruction, ang ginagawa dito is parang pagkakaroon ng personal trainer para sa brain ng taong may specific learning disorder. Kumbaga, sa ganung paraan is para matutukan yung taong facing a specific learning disorder. Sa madaling sabi is para siyang tutor na expert sa SLD or specific learning disorder na gumagamit ng strategies that work best for learners with these challenges. Cognitive behavioral therapy, ito naman yung treatment para ma-address ang emotional at behavioral challenges that may arise from a specific learning disorder tulad ng anxiety, frustration, and low self-esteem. Sa accommodations naman, sa pag-treatment ng taong may specific learning disorder is kailangan may workplace sila ng kanyang teacher para matutukan ang treatment niya. Or pag halimbawa may extra time for test and assignments. Sa medication naman, sa medication is habang wala pang FDA approved medications specifically for specific learning disorder, medications ang prescribed para sa co-occurring disorders tulad ng ADHD at anxiety. So now let's proceed to autism spectrum disorder. It is a complex neurodevelopmental condition that affects how a person perceives and interacts with the world around them. So ang autism spectrum disorder ay isang condition related to brain development na kung saan it impacts kung paano mag-perceive at makipag-socialize sa ibang tao na nagko-cause ng problems sa social interaction at sa pakikipag-communicate. Nagsisimula ang autism sa
autism spectrum disorder sa early childhood like sa 1-year-old baby and eventually na nagiging dahilan ng nahihirapan silang mag-interact sa iba tulad ng nasa school o sa trabaho. Malalaman mong may autism spectrum disorder ang isang tao dahil nagpapakita ito ng signs tulad ng halimbawa, kapag kinakausap mo siya o kung may mga itatanong ka sa kanya, sasagutin ka niya pero hindi siya nakatingin sa iyo ng diretso kasi hindi nila kayang makipag-eye contact ng matagal sa kausap nila. Ang isa pang sign ng autism spectrum disorder or ASD is kapag halimbawa nakaupo siya at parang hindi siya mapakali sa inuupuan niya. Para bang hindi siya mapakali, kumbaga malikot siya, galaw ng galaw sa inuupuan niya. Kapag sa early childhood naman, halimbawa ng 1-year-old baby is nagpapakita sila ng sign kapag halimbawa may 2 baso siya at yung isa is may lamang tubig and then ililipat niya yung tubig sa isang basong walang laman at pag nailipat na niya ito, ililipat na naman niya sa isang baso na walang tubig, which is paulit-ulit yung ginagawa niya. Isa rin sign ng ASD sa baby is kapag halimbawa ako bibigyan ko siya ng pagkain and then isusubo ko sa kanya, hindi niya yun isusubo, instead kukunin niya yung pagkain sa kamay ko at siya yung mismo susubo sa sarili niya. At kapag hindi niya nagawa yung bagay na yun, pag hindi niya nakuha yung gusto niya, iiyak siya. Yung mga taong may autism spectrum disorder o ASD is sometimes have other conditions tulad ng sleep disorder, ADHD, anxiety, and depression. That is the meaning, signs, and symptoms of autism spectrum disorder or ASD. So, ano ang treatment for autism spectrum disorder? So, habang wala pang cure para sa autism spectrum disorder o ASD, may iba't ibang treatments and interventions na nakakatulong sa pag-manage ng symptoms, pag-improve ng kanilang skills, at pag-enhance ng kanilang quality of life. So, meron tayong different approaches na nag-treat ng ASD such as behavioral approaches, developmental approaches, educational approaches, and the social relational approaches. So, the notable behavioral treatment for people with ASD is called applied behavioral analysis. Applied behavioral analysis or ABA encourages desired behaviors and discourages indesired or undesired behaviors to improve a variety of skills. So, sa ABA, ang ginagawa dito is tinuturuan sila ng behavior para ma-improve yung skills nila. Ini-encourage yung desired behavior nila at dinidiscourage naman yung undesired behaviors nila. For example, yung kapag kinakausap natin sila na hindi nila kaya magipag-eye contact, dinidiscourage yun at ini-encourage or sinasanay silang makipag-eye contact. Kumbaga, ina-apply yan ng behaviors. Developmental approaches. So, developmental approaches naman is ang speech and language therapy. It is important for individuals with ASD as it helps improve and communication skills including understanding and using speech and language. So, yung mga taong may ASD ay kadalasan nakaka-experience ng communication challenges which is nakaka-apekto sa kanilang social interactions, learning, and overall quality of life. Yung individuals na may ASD is nahihirapan silang umintindi at gumamit ng tamang language or salita in social contexts. Nahihirapan silang mag-interpret ng words at nahihirapan silang i-express ang mga sarili nila verbally. Kumbaga, halimbawa, may naiisip sila or nararamdaman sa kung may naiisip sila at nararamdaman is nahihirapan silang sabihin kung ano ba yon. Nahihirapan talaga silang i-express ang feelings nila. So, yung mga ganitong problems is need ng speech and language therapy na nakapaloob sa developmental approaches. Educational approaches. So, the one type of educational approach is the treatment and education of autistic and related communication handicapped children, or TEACCH approach in short. Treatment and education of autistic and related communication handicapped children. It is a comprehensive approach that encompasses clinical service, research, and training aiming to improve the lives of individuals with ASD. It provides teachers with strategies to address classroom structure and improve academic and other outcomes. Ang TEACCH ay kilalang program design na sumusuporta sa mga individual na may ASD, kung saan ipinapakita na every individual with ASD has unique strengths, challenges, and learning styles. Sinusuportahan sila through example visual aids such as schedules, routines, and instructions. Yun ang mga ginagamit para ma-enhance ang kanilang consistency and understanding. So the last treatment or approach of ASD is social relational approaches. It is focusing on improving social skills and building meaningful relationships. These approaches recognize that individuals with ASD often face challenges in understanding and navigating social interactions. So dito sa social relational approaches, ito yung treatment na makipag-socialize sa ibang tao. Dito yung part na ini-encourage ang individuals na may ASD na ma-express ang kanilang sarili, like makipag-interact sa mga taong nasa paligid nila at makipag-communicate sa ibang tao.
So good day, ma'am. I'm Najila Pamintin and I'm going to report the intellectual disability. So, intellectual disability is, ayon sa DSM-5, is nahihirapan daw yung mga tao na may intellectual disability sa tatlong areas. So, first is yung conceptual, second is social, and the lastly is conceptual. So, sa conceptual is included dito yung mga basic intellectual skills, like for example, reasoning, language, and knowledge in general. So of course, nami-measure ito or na-assess ito through intellectual ability test or mga intelligence test na nami-measure nila yung IQ, nami-measure nila yung IQ basically. So in terms of social naman is nahihirapan silang makihalubilo even sa mga kasama nila sa bahay. So sa practical naman is sa practical areas naman ng buhay nila is maaaring mahirapan yung mga taong may intellectual disability sa kanilang pang-araw-araw na gawain at responsibilidad, katulad ng personal hygiene or yung mga daily activities nila. Like for example, pagpunta sa malayong lugar or pagkukompute or pagbili ng mga bagay-bagay na kailangan nila sa bahay. So, sa intellectual disability is merong degrees of intellectual disability. Ito yung mild, moderate, severe, at saka profound. So, sa mild, ito yung mga bata na may kakayahang sumuporta sa kanila. At this level, nakakapag-adjust pa sila sa society. So, itong mild intellectual disability is not obvious na makikita mo na meron silang intellectual disability. Pero kapag sa klase na, nakikitaan mo na merong delay sa pag-process ng information, and in terms of adaptive skills, medyo hindi sila nakakasunod sa mga regular na students. So, the level of supports na kailangan ng bata na may intellectual disability is hindi gaano kabigat or hindi mahirap turuan. Kailangan mo lang silang turuan or i-guide through direct instruction, kasi nakukuha naman nila agad yun. So, meron lang delay pero hindi gaano kalala. So, sa moderate intellectual naman is kapag ang bata na may IQ na 35 to 49 ay moderate. Under this level, ang bata ay medyo nahihirapan na sa konsepto. At minsan itong mga bagay na to ay nagkukos ng kanilang stress, hindi na nagpa-function ng mabuti ang kanilang utak, nahihirapan na siya, and then ang gagawin natin po dito bilang parents or teachers is magbibigay po tayo ng extra support para sa kanila, kasi itong mga batang may moderate intellectual disability is nakakaya pa nila. Maaari pa silang magkamit ng independence sa paggawa ng mga gawaing bahay, academic learning, kaya kaya pa nila, pero kailangan lang nila ng taong gagabay sa kanila sa mga ganoong sitwasyon, lalo na kapag ang sitwasyon ay medyo stressful or frustrated na para sa kanila. So, the third is severe. So, kapag ang bata ay may severe intellectual disability, is malaki na yung pangangailangan. Kumbaga, malaking support na yung kailangan na may severe intellectual disability. Kasi wala na silang kaunting kasanayan sa pagkikipag-komunikasyon, and expected the intellectual capacity is limitado na masyado para maturuan pa sila ng mga konsepto ng academic, katulad ng mga konseptong mathematics and science. Medyo di nila kaya, pero may chance na ang bata ay maturuan ngayon, pero in different level. Tuturuan sila ng life skills, kasi dito with the support na nakukuha nila sa teacher, nakukuha nila sa parents, is mayroong pang chance na maturuan nila ang ibang matutunan nila ang ibang kasanayan na makakatulong sa kanila para maging isang independent na tao na marunong makisalamuha sa ibang tao. So, the level of support na kailangan ng bata na may severe intellectual disability is medyo substantial. Kailangan na ng tao na kasama, pero hindi naman necessary na 24 hours, is nakabantay tayo. So, under this severe intellectual disability is nakabantay tayo. Kailangan lang nila ng scaffold natin para magawa po nila ang specific skill or specific na gagawin para maturuan sila maging independent on that specific area. So the last T is profound. The last of severity of intellectual disability is profound. So sa antas na ito is meron na lamang kaunting kakayahan ang bata in terms of this conceptual skills, kung paano siya mag-process ng mga information and adaptive skills. Yung mga kakayahan niya para makasurvive sa pang-araw-araw at paggalaw ng kanyang katawan. So, naapektuhan ng kanyang motor skills, pati ang kanyang fan skills. Umaabot minsan na hindi na siya marunong humawak ng kutsara, hindi na siya marunong magsulat, hindi na siya marunong humawak ng mga bagay na nakakaapekto sa kanyang pang-araw-araw na buhay. At dahil sa kakulangan na yon, intensibong suporta ang mga batang may profound intellectual disability na umaabot pa minsan na kailangan nakabantay tayo at nakasuporta 24/7. So, meron tayong limitations of intellectual disability. Number 1 is intellectual functioning, and number 2 is adaptive behaviors. So, sa intellectual functioning is kilala rin bilang IQ test. So, ito ay tumutukoy sa kakayahan ng isang taong matuto, gumawa ng mga decision at lumutas ng mga problema. So, sa adaptive skills, adaptive behaviors is ito ay mga kinakailangan kasanayan sa pang-araw-araw na gawain katulad ng pakikipag-usap at pakikipag-ugnayan. So, levels of intellectual disability, we have under intellectual disability and unspecific intellectual disability. So, sa other intellectual disability is, so people in this category are often physically impaired. Ito yung mga may disability in physical, like for example, Down syndrome. Makikita mo sa kanya na may disability through her physical look, of course, and tsaka yung mga hindi nakakakita at hindi nakakarinig. So, yun yung tinatawag na other intellectual disability. So, sa unspecific intellectual disability is they will show symptoms of intellectual disability na sa unspecific intellectual disability is they will show symptoms but unspecified pa. Kumbaga, hindi pa totally na-impaired yung isang tao, but the doctor doesn't have enough information para ma-determine kung anong level of disabled na meron sila. So, the common causes of intellectual disability is number 1 is genetic conditions. So, sa genetic disorder is may tinatawag na chromosal disorder, microcephaly, hydrocephalus, and lastly is yung environmental influences. So, sa chromosal disorder is within the human body, meron tayong chromosomes, and one particular disability that we are more common with is Down syndrome. And so in Down syndrome, the 21st chromosomes produces 3 chromosomes rather than just 2 causing Down syndrome. So Down syndrome is always has some form of an intellectual disability. So next there are there are disorder of the brain formation. Ito yung microcephaly. So, sa microcephaly is, kung makikita natin is, yung ulo ng size nila is maliit, and then yung brain size din nila is maliit din, unlike sa normal child. And yung tinatawag na hydrocephalus is opposite ng microcephaly. Their head size is malaki, and then yung brain size nila is malaki din. So, and then the lastly is environmental influences. So, sa environmental influences is dito nagkakaroon ng fetal alcohol syndrome, where when the mother is carrying her baby, if she takes in too much alcohol, then the baby can have various level of fetal alcohol syndrome. And there's also infections that the expected mother may pass to her baby, such as rubella. So number 2 is problem during pregnancy. There is the cause of anoxia, which is low oxygen to the brain, low birth weight or premature children, and infection passed by the mother. The lastly is a problem during birth. So looking at postnatal, there are biological causes such as meningitis, which is a bacterial infection in the brain stem, encephalitis, which is a viral infection in the brain. Also, there's heredity factors, and there's also psychological factors such as poor environmental circumstances. This could include excessive child neglect, and also lead in the pet or lead in the environment that is getting into the child's body. So most common signs of intellectual disability is nahihirapan silang umikot or umupo, gumapang at maglakad, and then talking late or having trouble with talking, and mabagal silang matuto ng mga bagay tulad ng potty training, pagsusuot ng damit, at mag-fade ng kanilang sarili. And then hirap sa pag-alala ng mga bagay, and then inability to connect actions with consequences. And then mga problema sa pag-uugali katulad ng matinding galit. And lastly, hirap sa paglutas ng problema or yung mga logical thinking. So, steps to help an intellectually disabled child is learn everything you can about intellectual disability. The more you know, the better na ma-advocate mo ang mga bata na may intellectual disability. Encourage the child's independence. Let the child try new things para may matutunan sila kahit konti. Hayaan mo sila kung ano yung mga gusto nilang gawin, pero ika-guide sila for their safety. And kung may nagawa silang maganda or may na-master sila, give them positive feedback. Nang sa ganun ay mas confidence pa sila to try something new sa mga susunod na araw. And get the child involved in group activities. Taking an art class or participating in scout will help the child build social skills. And stay involved by keeping in touch with the child's teachers. You'll be able to follow his or her progress and reinforce what the child is learning at school through practice at home. Get to know other parents na may anak na intellectual disabled, na they can be a great source of advice and emotional support. So, isa ito sa mga pinaka-importante na steps na matulungan ng may intellectual disability ang mga parents na may anak na intellectual disability kasi alam nila kung paano alagaan or suportahan ang kanilang mga anak na may disability. Tsaka pinaka-importante yung patience na binibigay nila.
Letter D, diagnose orientation for delirium. Disturbance in criteria A and are not better explained by another person affecting established or involving neurocognitive. Halimbawa, isang pasyente na nagkakaroon ng delirium ay maaaring magkaroon ng mataas na temperatura dahil sa temperatura na ay maaaring maging sanhi ng pagkaligto at pagbabago sa kanilang antas ng kamalayan na nagre-resulta sa delirium. Ang iba pang halimbawa nito ay isang tao na nag-withdraw mula sa alcohol ay maaaring magkaroon ng delirium. Dahil sa pag-alis ng alcohol ay maaaring nagdudulot ng mga pisikal na sintomas tulad ng pagsusuka, pagyanig at pagkalito na maaaring humantong sa delirium. Number 2, diagnose criteria for delirium. B. The disturbance develop over a short period of time, usually first to a few days, represent in change from full attention in awareness. A right tends to fluctuate severely during the hours in course of day. Halimbawa, consider an adult is normally alert and aware of these surroundings, but he suddenly becomes confused and restless for several days. His attention fluctuates, sometimes focusing and sometimes not. This an example of delirium that develop over short period of the time and show us change in his usually level of attention awareness. The number 3, diagnosis criteria for delirium. An additional disturbance in cognition, memory deficit, disorientation, language, visual, potential ability, or perception. Like halimbawa, while a person experiment delirium may have trouble remembering recent events or understanding their surrounding, they may also have trouble navigating their surrounding of recognized objects. Letter D, diagnose orientation for delirium. Disturbance in criteria A and are not better explained by another person affecting established or involving neurocognitive. Halimbawa, isang pasyente na nagkakaroon ng delirium ay maaaring magkaroon ng mataas na temperatura dahil sa temperatura na ay maaaring maging sanhi ng pagkaligto at pagbabago sa kanilang antas ng kamalayan na nagre-resulta sa delirium. Ang iba pang halimbawa nito ay isang tao na nag-withdraw mula sa alcohol ay maaaring magkaroon ng delirium. Dahil sa pag-alis ng alcohol ay maaaring nagdudulot ng mga pisikal na sintomas tulad ng pagsusuka, pagyanig at pagkalito na maaaring humantong sa delirium. Diagnosis criteria for delirium. Letter A, there is evidence from the Humorny physical examination or laboratory findings that disturbance is a direct physiological consequences of another medical condition, substance into the occasion of withdrawal due to a dry of abuse or to a medical book in exposure to a tone or is due to multiple intelligence mental disorder. Halimbawa, medical condition, a pattern with pneumonia may development delirium due to infection. Pneumonia may cause fever, low blood and oxygen levels. In other symptoms that may result in confusions in genes in blood levels awareness. Treatment. The first step for other treatment of delirium is addressing understanding cause, for example, delirium brought on by withdrawal from alcohol or other drugs is usually treating with haloperidol or other antipsychotic medication which help calm the individual. Halimbawa, a patient with chronic delirium due to alcohol withdrawal may have symptoms such as shaking or vomiting and confusing. Haloperidol can reduce these symptoms and calm the patient. Prevention. Prevention effort may be most successful in assisting people who are susceptible to delirium. Proper medical care, illness, and therapeutic drug monitoring can play significant roles in prevention of delirium. Breitbart in Alice 2012, for example, the increasing number of older adults involved in managed care in patent counseling or drug use appear to have led to more appropriate use of prescription drug among the elderly as general, according to Officer 1995. An older person with the diabetes may have an increasing risk of the developing delirium if they do not properly control their blood sugar with the proper medical care, including regular blood sugar check and taking medication as the direct perception can help reduce the risk of delirium.
So, perspective of neurocognitive disorder. So, when a person's brain, such as the ability to remember, think, understand, or make decisions, start to have problems or weaknesses, then we call that condition neurocognitive disorders. That means those parts of the brain that control our ability to think and understand, when they do not work properly, then the person face many kinds of problems. So when a person has some difficulty in remembering everything or in doing some work, however they are capable of living their normal life, this does not mean that it should be ignored. With the right recognition and treatment at the right time, a person's life can improve. So the neurocognitive disorder has two main types. Number one is major mild neurocognitive disorder or mild neurocognitive impairment. So when a person has difficulty with memory, thinking and understanding, but it is not severe that the person cannot perform their daily life activities, they're just a bit struggle while doing normal tasks. Okay. So number two is major neurocognitive disorder or severe cognitive impairment. So in this condition, a person has significantly difficult in performing daily life activities. This includes considerable problems with remembering, understanding, and thinking. Sometimes the person may exhibit the disease in different forms, and its effect also varies from one individual to another. So we have 6 domains of neurocognitive disorders. Number 1 is complex attention. So sa complex attention is selectively focusing on a specific information or task while filtering out distractions. It is ability to allocate and sustain attention for extended periods when dealing with intricate or multifaceted stimuli. Number 2 is executive function. So this is a set of mental function that enable individuals to plan, organize, initiate, and manage time and switch between tasks, control impulses, and adapt to changing circumstances. So this is essentially for goal-directed behavior and decision making. Example is a student planning to have a study schedule, so you break down tasks into manageable parts, setting priorities, and resisting the urge procrastinate. So executive function is a goal-directed decision that you have got a certain goal. You divide them into some units and executive it, and that is the executive function. So learning and memory is interrelated. So you will learn or acquire new information or skills. So learning attests to planning to do some procedures, getting the examined efficient, or these are parts of learning. So it is either learning and acquiring information or learning some skills. So what is memory? So memory is the process of storing and retrieving the information when required, and as mentioned, they are closely related. So example is when we are going to write an examination, you have studied, that is learning and retrieve during examination or recall it. So number 4 is language. Language is a system for communicating. It uses symbols, words, grammar, and meaning. So it encompasses spoken, written, sign language, and it is fundamental for communication. So language uses spoken things, written things, and science. All this comes under language. So language functions are important for communication. As mentioned, it is a system of communication that uses symbols, words, and grammar with meaning or to convey some meaning. Number 5 is perceptual motor. So perceptual motor skills involve coordination of sensation that you have perceived, coordinational sensory perception. So what are the sensory perception? It can be visual, auditory, and tactile, and you coordinate with these motor skills, that is movement and coordination. So there is a perceptual motor interaction. For example is, you can see here a boy is playing a piano. So playing a musical instrument such as piano requires perceptual motor skills. So you should read the music, that is perception. So the process is mentally and coordinate your fingers to character case, so that the motor skills. And the lastly is social cognition. So the social cognition is very important for communication. Here the cognitive process is going on to understand and interact with others. It encompasses skills such as empathy, theory of mind, that is able to read somebody's mind or thinking or thought process and feeling of others and interpret its cues and norms. For example, somebody is sad or upset for the example sad or upset for the exam result. By seeing the facial expression, you understand, or from the bottom of voice you can understand. So you should respond with a tone embodied, and so that social interactions are effective. So when a friend has failed an examination, and if you have got very good marks, you should behave appropriately. Such a way you should understand the other persons, and some people are unable to identify these social cues or facial expressions, and read somebody's mind with these cues so you don't do issues in the social interaction. So, delirium. What is delirium? So, delirium, it is a mark by a disturbance in attention and awareness, orientation. The person isn't aware of where they are and what they're doing. They may also lose consciousness at times. There can also be a disturbance in cognition, meaning that a person at times seems lucid. So they're able to have a conversation with you. At other times, they seem very impaired, almost in a kind of psychotic state. So the disturbance develops quickly and fluctuates during the day. It's not as if they are only impaired, like persistently throughout the day. They actually do have periods where they are lucid, where they can have a conversation with you, and other times when they have impairment. So the treatment planning of delirium, so what do we do with delirium? We always involve a medical professional but with prevention. So we would engage in a dialogue with prescriber, regular intervals. Typically, you're only going to be working someone who's experiencing delirium in more of a hospital-based environment. They're not going to be able to maintain at home. So you want to plan out substance withdrawals carefully, and patient treatment might be indicated because of the potential for delirium to occur. So when delirium does occur, the person is usually in a crisis state. And so, as I mentioned, inpatient treatment may be required if you are doing work with someone who has delirium in an inpatient setting. Typically, all you're doing is assessing with things like daily grounding techniques or for alertness and orientation. CBT is often useful for this. So, in other words, helping a person just orient to what are the sounds around you or the sights around you. So a little bit more about delirium is that the way to different is from a major mild neurocognitive disorder is to consider that these changes occur rapidly, that the onset does not take weeks and months for a person to develop delirium, whereas it can with a neurocognitive disorder. So a major neurocognitive disorder, and so the person may, for example, have memory loss, have consciousness and orientation alertness, and those changes happen fast, and so that's one of the major market that tells you probably more delirium. Another thing to note about delirium is that it can also accompanied with some psychotic symptoms. For example, formation, the feeling of bugs or creatures crawling on the skin is not uncommon, and you don't tend to see that as often with a neurocognitive disorder.
Major and mild neurocognitive disorder. Major neurocognitive disorder, previously commonly dementia, is a gradual deterioration of brain functioning that affect memory, judgment, language, and other advanced cognitive process. Mild neurocognitive disorder is a new DSM-5 disorder that was created to focusing attention on early state of cognitive decline. Neurocognitive disorder is a group into 3 subcategories: delirium, mild neurocognitive disorder, some decrease mental function but able to stay independent in do daily tasks. Major neurocognitive disorder, decreased mental function and loss of ability to do daily tasks. neurocognitive disorder owing to Alzheimer's disease. Neurocognitive disorder, si Alzheimer's disease noong 1907, the German psychiatrist Alois Alzheimer, siya yung unang inilarawan ng German ng psychiatrist na si Alois Alzheimer ang karamdaman na nagdadala sa kanyang pangalan. He wrote of 51 years old woman who had a strange disease of the cerebral contents, what manifesting as a progressive memory impairment and other behavioral cognitive problems including suspiciousness, regards and sweet. 2009. Tinawag niya ang disorder na isang typically form of senile dementia. Thereafter, it was referring to as Alzheimer's disease. Description and statistic. The DSM-3 diagnostic criteria for neurocognitive disorder due to Alzheimer's disease include multiple cognitive deficits that develop gradually in strategy. Predominant are impairment in moving or intention, judgment, and reasoning. The inability to integrate new information result in to learn new association. Individuals with Alzheimer's disease forget important events and lose object their interest in others. As a result, become more socially isolated. As the disorder players, they can become againly confused, depressing anxieties or event. Combative meaning thus difficulties become more pronounced late in the day. In phenomenon referring to as sundowning syndrome, perhaps as a result of fatigue or disturbance in the brain's biological clock, pendulum, social and sensory. 2013, Lee May and Land Reviling 2010. Ang isang tao ay maaaring magkaroon ng problema sa pag-aalala sa mga kamakailang pangyayari at tulad ng isang pag-uusap o isang appointment na maaaring silang magkaroon ng problema sa pag-aaral sa mga pangalan ng mga tao o bagay. Evidence of significant cognitive decline from a previous level of performance in one of more cognitive domain, complex attention, executive function, learning, and memory, language, percentile, motor, or social cognition, based of one concern of the individual knowledge, able to information of the clinical that there has been a significant decline in cognitive function. And two, submitted impairment in cognitive performance purportedly documented by Stanford Neuropsychological Test in its advanced another qualified clinical assessment. B, the cognitive deficient interfere with independence every day. A victim free at manufacturing substance with complete mental activities of dialing, having, soothing, as the paying bills of managed medication. C, cognitive deficit do not occur inclusively the context of delirium. CD, cognitive deficit are not better explained by another mental disorder. A major depressive disorder, schizophrenia. A 70 years old woman who was previously a sharp and active accountant is now having trouble managing his financial, forgetting appointment, and losing case. Letter B. The woman in example are one bob of longer able to manage her finances independently. He needs help of paying bills, balancing his checkbook, and making appointment. Letter C, ang isang tao na biglang nagkakaroon ng pagkakalito at disorientation ngunit nawala ang kanyang sintomas sa loob ng ilang araw, ay hindi magtutugma ang pagmamantayan ito, malamang na ito ay isang kaso ng delirium hindi mine. Letter D naman is, ang halimbawa nito is isang tao na nagkaranas ng makabuluhang pagtanggi sa kakayahan sa pag-iisip dahil sa malubhang depression ay hindi matutugunan ang pamantayan nito.
So now let's proceed to my next topic, which is the neurocognitive disorder. Neurocognitive disorder, a category of mental health disorders that primarily affects cognitive abilities, including learning, memory, perception, and problem solving. Ang neurocognitive disorder ay isang mental health disorder kung saan may negative impact sa pag-iisip ng isang tao. Ang iilang bagay na naaapektuhan ng neurocognitive disorder ay ang learning, memory, perception, at maging ang pag-solve ng problem ng isang tao. Kapag may neurocognitive disorder ang isang tao, maaaring mahihirapan siyang matuto sa mga bagay-bagay, nagiging makakalimutin siya, nag-iiba ang mga pananaw niya sa buhay, at minsan dumarating din sa point na nahihirapan din siyang kumilala ng tao. Isa sa impact ng neurocognitive disorder ay ang Alzheimer's disease. So we have three main types of neurocognitive disorders, which are delirium, mild neurocognitive disorder, and major neurocognitive disorder. Sa delirium, isa itong state ng acute confusion na kung saan nagkakarakterize or nagpapakita ng biglang pagkawala ng atensyon ng isang tao, ang kanyang awareness at maging ang kanyang cognitive function. Kumbaga, ang pagkawala sa focus ng isang tao sa kanyang iniisip at napapalitan ito ng pagkakabalisa. Ang iilang symptoms ng delirium ay tulad ng hallucinations, delusions, and memory problems. Sa mild neurocognitive disorder naman, ito yung para din siyang pre-dementia stage na kung saan ang tao ay nakaka-experience ng some cognitive decline tulad ng pagiging makakalimutin. Halimbawa, hindi na niya ma-recall yung mga events na pinuntahan niya, or may keep losing items tulad halimbawa ng mga susi, suklay, or whatever pa na halimbawa nilagay niya lang dito, and then suddenly parang nabigla siya or nagtaka na wala na sa kamay niya, which is nailagay niya or nailagay niya kung saan lang, which is nakalimutan niya kung saan niya nailagay ito. So last type of neurocognitive disorder is the major neurocognitive disorder. Sa major neurocognitive disorder, ito na yung tinatawag na dementia, which is malala na siya or severe na nakakaapekto sa pang-araw-araw na pamumuhay, lalo na sa mga activities na ginagawa sa araw-araw, such as managing finances, driving, or performing household tasks. Kaya ganun ang nangyayari kasi nagde-decrease na yung mental functions dito. Some causes of neurocognitive disorders are brain injuries, degenerative disorders, infections, and metabolic disorders. In brain injuries, ang traumatic brain injuries, strokes at concussion ay pwedeng mag-lead to cognitive impairment or neurocognitive disorder. In degenerative disorders, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, Huntington's disease, and Lewy body dementia are progressive neurocognitive disorders that cause gradual cognitive decline. In infection, infections, encephalopathy, and brain inflammation of the brain and spinal cord lining, and certain prion infections can lead to cognitive impairment. Sa metabolic disorders naman, kidney disease, liver disease, thyroid disorders, and vitamin deficiencies can affect brain function and contribute to cognitive decline. What is the treatment for neurocognitive disorder? There is no cure for neurocognitive disorders or the diseases that cause them. Pharmacological approaches combined with behavioral and environmental intervention are most successful in treating the neurocognitive disorder. So, sa part na to is yung kagrupo ko yung magdi-discuss dito. So, how to prevent a neurocognitive disorder? We have to do some things to prevent this kind of disorder, such as maintain healthy diet, engage in regular physical activity, get sufficient sleep, manage stress, maintain social connections, avoid smoking and excessive alcohol consumption, and control underlying medical conditions. So that is the end of my report. Thank you for your cooperation.